We were young and innocent. We thought Robert Mueller might get Donald Trump for some ties to Russia if he looked at his businesses. It turns out we know now that, thanks largely to Andrew Weissman's book, he never looked at his businesses. But that was Trump's reaction on the front of all those assumptions made by everyone watching from the outside. Trump saying to reporters from the New York Times, ostensibly so that Robert Mueller would hear them, that he would view it as a red line if anyone looked into his business conduct or his businesses, saying this is about Russia, my businesses are over here. It's along the same lines of what I'm going to show you next. His almost an ally of his calls it reptilian instincts for self-preservation. He himself knows that it's not pretty under the hood. Frank.
Yeah, Nicole, look, I think Trump has misjudged his exposure here. There's hubris here, and there's just bad gambling luck. So with regard to folks like Manafort, Stone, and others, he believed that he could control them, that they were loyal enough to him, or excuse me, disloyal enough that he didn't trust them, that he needed to dangle the pardons. He needed pardons and commutations. I think he's misjudged Weisselberg and others. I think he thought he was Teflon. This wouldn't happen. He was emboldened by Mueller not going after finances. And I think he's misplayed this. There's two takeaways I take from the very brief announcement from the New York State Attorney General yesterday. Number one, what does it mean when a civil case at the AG level in a state has turned criminal, now has a criminal component to it? When you're talking about the former president of the United States, it means something more than the bare minimum threshold of reasonable suspicion that a crime has occurred. I don't think she would make this announcement lightly, or if she merely had reasonable suspicion. I think she's got strong evidence. I think she has specific and articulable facts that she's very confident in. Number two, the other part of that brief announcement was this coordination effort with the Manhattan District Attorney. What does that mean strategically? It means that when you're investigating some of the same people, and their same people are criminally exposed, and the same other people might be your informants, your cooperating witnesses, you've got to come together as two prosecutive entities and not speak at opposite ends, right? You've got to offer people the same deal. You really need to coordinate your intelligence. And if the same people are exposed, you've got to figure out the division of labor. Who's going after Trump personally? That appears to be the DA in Manhattan with tax issues. Who's going after the organization? That appears to be the AG. But make no mistake for your viewers, just because it's an organizational prosecution does not mean human beings in that organization can't go to prison as part of that case. In fact, as part of most white-collar crime cases against corporation, there is heated discussion, often between agents and prosecutors, about whether or not someone deserves to go to prison. And what do they look at for those criteria? Are there things in place to have prevented this? Was this a one-off, an anomaly, or is there more systemic fraud? Is there evidence of intent? My message to the Trump family who are officers in the organization today is, if you don't all have separate lawyers representing you on the organization case, do not trust that one organization attorney who represents the organization's interests to represent your interests. It's time to separately lawyer up and realize that you may have different interests than your brother, sister, or father.
There's so much to unpack there. Let me follow up with you, Frank. I mean, is the Enron prosecution an example of a business that was prosecuted but individuals went to jail? Is that the kind of prosecution that they could be imagining?
Yeah, absolutely. In the majority of big corporate white-collar cases, there's a fine levied. The corporation's trying to get it right. They slipped up. There were some low-level people that screwed up, even intentionally, and you don't see CEOs and officers go to prison. But in a case like this, if they can show systemic fraud, knowledge, intent, no fiduciary responsibility mechanisms in place, just no one really caring about things getting done right, and if the intent goes to the top, you're going to see people go to prison.